Fear doesn't always come with a creaking door or a shadow stretching too long in the dim glow of a street lamp. Sometimes, it hides in routine, the quiet moments when you're certain you're alone. But something feels off. It's in the whispers you dismiss as the wind, the familiar streets that suddenly seem wrong, the strangers who look too much like people you know. My story isn't about an old haunted house or some abandoned asylum. It's about a city, busy and bright, where life hums along as usual, until, one day, it doesn't. It began, as these things often do. On an ordinary evening. I was heading home from work, standing at my usual bus stop, a quiet stretch between a row of coffee shops and a small park. The street smelled of autumn, damp leaves, roasted chestnuts from a vendor nearby, and the faint metallic scent of approaching rain. I wasn't alone. A man stood a few feet away, dressed in a gray coat, his hands tucked into his pockets. I'd never seen him before, but that wasn't unusual. Cities are full of strangers. What was unusual was how still he was. Most people shift their weight, check their phones, glance up the street for the bus. Not him. He just stood there, his head slightly turned toward me, though I couldn't see his face. I looked away. A moment later, I felt something strange. Not movement, not sound, just a shift. Like when you know someone's looking at you. I turned back. The man was closer. Not walking. Not moving. Just closer than before. The distance between us had halved. My throat went dry. I hadn't heard him step forward. Hadn't seen him move. The bus's headlights rounded the corner, and relief flooded my chest. As it pulled up, I turned toward the doors, then stopped. The man was right beside me. I stumbled back, a sharp breath catching in my throat. He hadn't moved. Couldn't have. But he was there, inches away. The scent of cold air clinging to him. The bus doors hissed open. Without thinking, I bolted inside. As the doors closed behind me, I dared one last glance out the window. The man was gone. I didn't sleep well that night. My dreams were murky, filled with strange, whispering voices and streets that never ended. The next morning, I chalked it up to exhaustion and went about my day. Work was uneventful, the hours slipping by in a blur of meetings and emails. By evening, the encounter at the bus stop felt distant, like something I had imagined. Until I got home. I flicked on the lights, kicked off my shoes, and went to wash my face. That's when I saw it. My reflection was wrong. Not in an obvious way. My face was my face. My body was my body. But something felt delayed. I lifted my hand to splash water on my face. My reflection lifted its hand just a fraction of a second too late. My breath hitched. I tested it again, raising my left arm, tilting my head. Each time, the reflection followed, but with the tiniest lag. I stepped back. It did too. I turned away from the mirror. And then, the reflection didn't move. I froze. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it. Slowly, carefully, I turned back. The reflection was normal again. Moving with me, in sync. I laughed, a shaky, nervous sound. Jesus, I muttered. I need more sleep. Still, as I switched off the bathroom light and left the room, I couldn't shake the feeling that something in the mirror was still watching me. By the third day, the unease had settled deep into my bones. The feeling of being watched hadn't left me. If anything, it had grown stronger. On the subway, at work, even in my own home. I felt unseen eyes trailing me. Then came the phone call. It was late, past midnight. My phone buzzed on my nightstand, the screen glowing with an unknown caller ID. I shouldn't have answered. But I did. At first, there was only silence. Then, a whisper. Too soft to understand. Too quiet to be real. I swallowed hard. Who is this? The whispering stopped. Then, in a voice that sent ice crawling down my spine, it said, "You already know." I ended the call. My hands trembled as I placed the phone face down beside me. Then the screen lit up again. Another call. Unknown caller. I didn't answer. But as I watched the phone, I saw something that made my blood run cold. The name on the screen was changing. Letter by letter. The words unknown caller twisted into something else. My name. The ringing stopped. And from the hallway outside my bedroom, I heard the floorboards creak. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't sleep the next, either. By the fourth day, my body ached with exhaustion. I skipped work, unable to focus on anything except the gnawing sense that something had latched onto me. That evening, I made a decision. I had to get away. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and left my apartment. The city streets were empty. A thick fog had settled over everything. Muffling sound and swallowing streetlights whole. I walked fast. No destination. Just away. Then, a shape emerged in the fog ahead. Tall. Motionless. A man in a gray coat. My breath caught. My pulse thundered in my ears. He was standing still. Watching. No. Not watching. Waiting. I turned sharply, ready to run. And collided with someone. A passerby. Just an ordinary woman. She mumbled an apology and kept walking. I exhaled, turning back toward the man. But he was gone. The street was empty again. And then, in the thick silence, I heard a whisper. Not behind me. Not beside me. But inside my own head. You already let me in. The whisper echoed inside my skull, soft but absolute. You already let me in. I spun around, heart hammering. Scanning the fog-drenched street. Nothing. No figures lurking in doorways. No footsteps trailing mine. Just the empty city swallowing sound. But I wasn't alone. I could feel it. The presence wasn't behind me or in front of me. It wasn't in the shadows or in the fog. It was inside me. I pressed my palms against my temples, squeezing my eyes shut. You're exhausted. You're sleep-deprived. That's all this is. But even as I tried to rationalize, I could feel something shifting in the periphery of my thoughts, like a second consciousness, silent but watching. The whisper hadn't just been words. It had been a realization. Something had gotten in. And it was waiting. I barely remember how I got home that night. The next thing I knew, I was standing inside my apartment, the door locked behind me, my hands trembling. I went straight to the bathroom, turning the faucet on just to hear something, anything, other than the suffocating silence. When I looked up, my reflection was normal. No delays. No distortions. Just me, dark circles beneath my eyes. My expression tight with exhaustion. I gripped the edges of the sink, forcing slow breaths. You're fine, I whispered. You're fine. Something whispered back. But it wasn't from behind me. It came from the mirror. My own mouth had moved, shaping the words, but I hadn't spoken. A cold wave of nausea crashed over me. The reflection's lips curled into a small, knowing smile. I stumbled back, my breath hitched in my throat. No, I rasped. The reflection's head tilted, amused. You already let me in. I bolted from the bathroom, slamming the door shut. My chest heaved. My vision swam. But the worst part wasn't what I'd just seen. It was the realization that the whisper had come from inside my own head, too. Like a thought that wasn't mine. I don't remember falling asleep. But at some point, exhaustion won. I woke up the next morning with sunlight streaming through my window. My phone lay beside me on the bed, the screen lit up. 6:37 a.m. I exhaled slowly, the events of the night before pressing in like a dull headache. It had to be sleep deprivation. Hallucinations, maybe. I'd heard of extreme exhaustion doing that to people. Then I noticed something strange. The lock screen of my phone was open. I didn't remember unlocking it. My stomach tightened as I swiped up, opening my call log. I had made a call. At 3:12 a.m. To a number I didn't recognize. My blood ran cold. I clicked on the number. No name, just a string of digits. No outgoing sound recorded. No duration. I didn't remember dialing it. I didn't remember anything. Had I gotten up? Had I spoken to someone? Then, just as I was about to put the phone down, it rang. Unknown caller. I nearly dropped it. I stared, frozen. The number on the screen was the same one I had dialed in the middle of the night. My stomach clenched. Slowly, with shaking fingers, I pressed the answer button. Silence. Then, the faintest sound, so quiet I almost thought I was imagining it. Breathing. Not deep. Not labored. Just, there. I opened my mouth to speak, but something inside me screamed don't. A second passed. Then, a voice. My voice. Why did you call me? I hurled the phone across the room. It hit the wall, the screen cracking, the call ending. But even in the silence that followed, I felt the weight of the words. I had called. And whatever I had reached, whatever had answered, was still with me. That was the day I stopped trusting my own thoughts. I began noticing small things. I'd leave my keys on the counter, only to find them in my coat pocket minutes later. I'd check the time, look away, and when I looked back, whole hours had passed. But the worst part, the part that made my skin crawl, was the notes. They started appearing in my own handwriting. Scraps of paper on my desk. Words scrawled on the corners of receipts. The first one was simple, don't forget. Then, a day later, it's watching. And then, one night, after another stretch of missing time, I found a note by my bedside. It only had 3 words. You are me. Something cracked inside me. I grabbed every note, every scrap of paper, and shoved them into the trash. But as I stood there, panting, my fingers gripping the edge of the counter, I realized something. I didn't remember writing them. But I remembered thinking them. I tried to fight it. I clung to my routines. Forced myself to stay grounded. But reality had already started to slip. Conversations felt off, like people were responding to things I hadn't said yet. Mirrors became unbearable. I couldn't trust that the reflection wouldn't do something else. And then, one night, as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the whisper returned. Why do you resist? It was inside me now. Not a voice from the phone. Not a whisper in the mirror. A thought. A thought that wasn't mine. I squeezed my eyes shut. You're not real. You're not real. A soft laugh curled through my mind. I am you. I jolted up, gasping for breath, the room spinning. I stumbled to the bathroom, flicking on the light. My reflection stared back. But this time, it didn't move with me. It just watched. Then, slowly, it smiled. Not just with its mouth. With its eyes. As if it knew something I didn't. As if it had already won. I didn't sleep that night. I sat in my bed, knees drawn to my chest. The weight of my own reflection burning into the back of my mind. It had smiled. Not a trick of the light. Not a product of exhaustion. It had smiled. I kept telling myself I wouldn't look again. But by sunrise, I had to. The bathroom was exactly as I left it. The mirror, too. But as I stood there, staring at myself, a sick, twisting thought crept in. What if it's still pretending? I swallowed hard. Lifted my arm. The reflection lifted its arm, too. I turned my head. It mirrored me. I exhaled shakily. It's fine. It's normal. You're losing it. Then, just as I was about to turn away, the reflection blinked. I didn't. I staggered backward, my stomach lurching. My reflection blinked again, slow, deliberate, watching me react. That was when I realized something. I wasn't looking at a reflection anymore. I was looking at him. The next few days became a blur of missed work calls, unanswered texts, and growing paranoia. I stopped looking in mirrors. Stopped answering my phone. But the worst part wasn't what I saw. It was what I began remembering. I'd be washing dishes and suddenly recall a conversation with a stranger I'd never met. A memory so vivid, I could hear their voice, see their expression, except I had no idea who they were. I'd be walking down the street and know, with absolute certainty, that I had been there before. That I had stood in that exact spot on some other night, wearing different clothes. Hearing different sounds. Memories that weren't mine. Or worse, memories that felt like mine but had never happened. One night, I found something that shattered me completely. I was searching my desk for my earbuds when my hand brushed against a folded piece of paper. I didn't remember writing it. But the handwriting was mine. With shaking fingers, I unfolded it. There were only 2 sentences. You are not the first. You will not be the last. A choked sound escaped my throat. My hands trembled. My skin went cold. Because suddenly, deep in the recesses of my mind, I remembered writing it. And I remembered why. I had written a note before. A long time ago. Except it wasn't possible. I had never written that note before in my life. And yet, as I sat there, I could feel the memory resurfacing, like something buried being forced back into the light. I had been here before. I had written that note for myself. I felt sick. The walls of my apartment felt too small, too tight. I needed out. I grabbed my coat and my keys, threw open my front door. And froze. The hallway was wrong. It should have been the familiar, dimly lit corridor of my apartment building. But instead, the walls were bare, stretching endlessly in both directions. Disappearing into darkness. No doors. No signs. Just a long, empty corridor. As if my apartment was the only one that had ever existed. The silence was unbearable. The air felt heavy. Pressing against my skin like a weighted blanket. Then, softly. A whisper. Not behind me. Inside me. You're almost ready. I slammed the door shut, locking it. Bracing against it as my breath came in ragged gasps. This wasn't just paranoia. This wasn't just exhaustion. Something was unraveling. And I was at the center of it. My phone buzzed on the table. I flinched. Stared at the screen. Unknown caller. I didn't move. It buzzed again. And again. On the 4th ring, I picked it up. I didn't say anything. Neither did they. But I could hear breathing. Then. I need you to listen carefully. A pause. He's almost done with you. My pulse pounded in my ears. Who? I whispered. Silence. Then. Look at the mirror. The line went dead. I didn't want to. God, I didn't want to. But something deep inside me already knew what I would see. Slowly, I turned toward the bathroom. The door was open. The mirror visible from where I stood. And there, staring back at me, was not me. His eyes weren't quite the right color. His posture wasn't quite the same. But the smile, God, the smile, was what made my stomach drop. A slow, knowing grin. Like he had been waiting for me to see him. Then, he raised his hand. And waved. I stood frozen, my breath coming in sharp, uneven gasps. The reflection wasn't mimicking me anymore. It had its own movements. Its own expression. And then, before I could even think to speak, it spoke first. You need to stop fighting this. I recoiled, slamming my back against the wall. No delay. No hesitation. It wasn't waiting for me to move anymore. I clenched my fists, forcing words through my clenched jaw. Who are you? The reflection tilted its head slightly, considering. Then, in my exact voice, it answered. I'm you. No. I shook my head violently. You're. I know what you're thinking, it cut in smoothly. A sick feeling twisted in my gut. You think I'm something else, the reflection continued, still smiling. Something wearing your face. A parasite. An intruder. I swallowed hard. It leaned forward, resting its arms on the bathroom counter, breaking the rules of the mirror. But the truth? It exhaled, almost, sympathetically. You were never the first one here. The words sent a cold shock through my body. I shook my head. You're lying. The reflection sighed. If you really believed that, you wouldn't be so scared, would you? My nails dug into my palms. You're trying to mess with me. The reflection laughed. Not a distorted, unnatural sound. Not some inhuman thing. It was my laugh. A perfect, casual, familiar chuckle. I don't need to mess with you. It pressed its palms against the glass. You're already unraveling on your own. Then, just before I bolted out of the room, it whispered. And I should know. Because I was you once, too. I barely slept. When I did, I dreamed of streets I'd never walked, people I'd never met. I could smell the air, feel the pavement under my feet, except I had no memory of ever living those moments. And yet, they felt real. Like I had lived them. Like they were mine. I started losing more time. I'd glance at the clock, look away, and suddenly it was hours later. I'd wake up in places I didn't remember walking to. And sometimes, I'd catch myself doing things I didn't remember starting. Writing notes. Turning off lights. Rearranging objects. Little things. Subtle things. Until one night, I caught myself standing in front of the mirror. I don't remember getting up. I don't remember walking there. But there I was. Staring at my own reflection. And my own hand was pressed against the glass. A horrible, suffocating realization washed over me. What was I about to do? And then, I saw it. A flicker of movement in the mirror. But not me. Not quite. The reflection's fingers twitched before mine. Like it was anticipating what I would do before I did it. I stumbled back, slamming into the dresser. My heart pounded in my ears. The reflection smiled again. But this time, I felt it on my own face, too. Like it wasn't just watching anymore. It was pulling me closer. And worse. Somewhere, deep in my chest. I wanted to let it. The next morning, I found another note. This time, it wasn't tucked into my pocket. It was taped to my bathroom mirror. How much do you remember? I stared at the words. My pulse a dull roar in my ears. It was my handwriting. But I had no memory of writing it. I pressed a shaking hand to my temple. My memories felt slippery, wrong. Like some of them weren't mine anymore. Like they belonged to someone else. Or worse. Like I had been someone else, before all this started. And now I was just repeating the cycle. Becoming the next version. I stopped going outside. Stopped answering my phone. Stopped trusting the passage of time. Because every day, I woke up feeling less certain of who I was. Less sure that I was still separate from him. The man in the mirror wasn't a haunting. He wasn't an invader. He was becoming me. And I was becoming him. Because this had happened before. And it was happening again. That night, as I lay in bed, I felt something shift inside me. A deep, inescapable knowing. The kind that settles into your bones. Tomorrow, I wouldn't be me anymore. Not fully. Not enough. And when I looked in the mirror, he wouldn't be standing on the other side anymore. He'd be standing here. I wake up feeling light. Empty. Like something has been scraped away in my sleep. I sit up, stretch, exhale. Then I walk to the bathroom. I flip on the light. I look in the mirror. The face staring back at me is mine. Perfectly in sync. But something is missing. Something is gone. And I can't remember what. My gaze drifts downward, and that's when I see it. A note. Scrawled in my own handwriting. You are not the first. You will not be the last. A strange, distant feeling settles in my chest. I pick up the note. Turn it over. There's something written on the back. Don't look too closely next time. Or you'll remember. I frown. Something about those words makes my stomach turn. I crumple the note. Toss it in the trash. Then I smile at my reflection. And this time, he doesn't smile back.